A federal judge speaking out, warning of the death threats he's received after ruling against President Trump. U.S. District Judge John McConnell, who is my next guest, says after he extended a temporary ban on the Trump administration's attempts to freeze trillions in federal spending, the threats began. One of them was a pizza delivery sent to his home, put under the name of Daniel Anderl. That's the name of U.S. District Court Judge Esther Salas' son, who was killed in 2020 when a man targeting the judge showed up at her home and opened fire. Since Judge McConnell ruled against the Trump administration, U.S. Marshals have identified at least 6 credible death threats against him. His wife and daughter have also been targeted. This is one instance that's part of a disturbing increase in threats to judges all across the country. Out front now, Judge John McConnell, Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court of Rhode Island, and Judge Esther Salas, U.S. District Court Judge for the District of New Jersey. Thank you so much to both of you for being with us for such an important discussion here. And Judge McConnell, to you first, it is rare for a sitting judge to speak out. Why did you feel it's so important to do so now?
Because the language that's being used by other branches of government, personally attacking judges, has real life repercussions, both for the judges themselves and their family, but also for the rule of law and for democracy. We've had the Deputy Attorney General claim he was at war with the courts and calling others to follow. Judges have been called horrific names by members of the executive, and we've seen and we can see each time that this happens, the threats against judges increase. We've had a 65% increase this year in death threats against judges. We've never seen a co-equal branch of government turn on judges personally in an attempt to delegitimize them as we have for the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's a very staggering trend that we're seeing. And Judge McConnell, I do wonder what went through your mind when you received that pizza delivery with Daniel's name on it.
You know, that was one piece that was particularly disturbing because of the horror that Judge Salas and her husband lived through the murder of her son, Daniel, having to tell her that there were incredibly depraved hearts out there that were using her murdered son's name to intimidate other judges. Honestly, it broke my heart and made me worry about what else they were doing and potentially what was next.
And also Judge Salas, I mean, this wasn't a one-off, right? You received Judge McConnell's call, and then you learned he wasn't the only judge that this had happened to. There were many, many. And the stakes here are not unimaginable for you. You live them every day. How concerned are you for your colleagues?
I'm so very concerned for my colleagues, and I'm very concerned about democracy and really where we're headed if we continue this systematic and continuous attack against judges by other branches of government, and in particular from the president on down. And as of late, Brianna, DHS is doing its part to really, I think, put judges' lives in danger by their repeated use of governmental websites and government handles to, call judges the worst of the worst and put on government websites that particular judges are threats to national security. These acts by our government leaders, it's dangerous and it's reckless. And I'm just worried in general about the state of our country.
So you mentioned that the worst of the worst list. This was the general counsel at DHS that tweeted out on 2 separate occasions that the worst of the worst list, singling out these judges. And the president, of course, has railed against judges for years. But here are some of the more recent examples of him targeting the judiciary.
A lot of rogue judges, very bad people, very bad judges. The corrupt judge who was disgraceful.
We have rogue judges that are destroying our country.
Surrounded by corrupt judges and corrupt politicians.
So we reached out to the White House for a statement, and a spokesperson said to imply that the president's opinions about judges is, quote, akin to making threats is deeply unserious and should be dismissed by anyone with half a brain. No one understands the dangers of political violence more than President Trump. The Trump administration cares deeply for the safety of all members of the judicial branch, end quote. Judge Salas, what to that?
You know, I say that words matter. And I think that the president himself has talked about toning down the rhetoric after the White House correspondence attack. It has to go both ways, Brianna. We have to start really talking about issues on the merits. You want to criticize the judge's ruling, appeal us. But what you don't do is attack us personally. What you don't do is put us on the worst of the worst list, identify the president that appointed us, and start giving the American public half-truths about our rulings, putting our rulings at, putting them at best out of context, at worst, really, I think, providing the American public with disinformation about our rulings. This is all very dangerous conduct, and we have to get back to civility in this country, and we have to get back to a place where we can agree to disagree. But right now, what we're seeing, and the reason that Chief Judge McConnell, I'm so grateful to have him speaking up and speaking out, is because something has to be done to try to get everyone to put the brakes on this situation.
And Judge McConnell, after you ruled against the Trump administration, your courthouse was inundated. We're talking hundreds of disturbing calls and emails. And just so that people understand the kind of thing we're talking about, this is part of one threatening call that you shared with us.
So you better tell little motherfucking Judge McConnell, I don't know who the hell he thinks he is. I double dare you to try to put charges on Donald J. Trump. You son of a bitch, okay? You will get your asses whooped, okay? I will slap the shit out of it, okay? I'll slap your face to your face, motherfucker. And I wish somebody would assassinate your.
I mean, it's important to listen to so that we know what you're dealing with. It's hard to listen to. What do you say, Judge McConnell, to these clear attempts to try to intimidate you and make you feel threatened?
Well, you have to wonder what would cause an individual to make that kind of call, and I firmly believe that it's in response to the personal attacks that have been made by members of the executive, high up in the executive, personal attacks that have been made on judges. They don't attack our rulings, they attack judges personally. And when they do that, bad things happen. We know that directly. I've had colleagues who have been called a national security problem. Next day, she gets death threats. I had another colleague release an immigrant from detention, and the next day, 2 days later, DHS put out a press release chastising her for releasing someone who was had a warrant for murder out for them when they told the lawyer the day before the hearing not to tell the judge. So they told her not to tell the judge. They didn't tell the judge. She released him. Then they put out a press release. It's still up on their website with a misrepresentation about what she knew and what actions she took. We can't help but come to the conclusion that this is a systematic attempt to delegitimize the courts, to hurt the rule of law, and to undercut the independence of the judiciary. And again, it's not just me. I and hundreds, if not thousands, of judges throughout the country who have remained silent for their own personal reasons have had this happen to them. And I just desperately worry about what's going to happen to the rule of law and our independence if this keeps up. We saw it happen in Poland. We saw it happen in Hungary. When you want to bring down a rule of law, democratic government, the first thing you do is you attack the judiciary and you go after the judges. And that's what we're seeing happen here. And it's got to stop. It just has to stop, Brianna.
Judge McConnell and Judge Salas, thank you so much to both of you for being with us. Really appreciate it.